Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Backpack Trader Training Room for Thursday, May 27th, 2021. All kinds of gyrations this morning. If we jump in quickly to the crude, we have a get in sync short setting up 7 minutes before our start time, and price actually, and I would adjust that a couple of ticks, get below the 20 SMA, even though that's a small trade, and I've reflected that in the money management. So I adjusted down to 67. But even at 69, I don't think we would have actually. Yeah, at 69, you probably would have gotten ticked into that on this bar right here and taken a full stop. But as I say, I would adjust below the 20 SMA on that one. Go down to 67. And that kept me out of the trade. Unfortunately, Pound Aussie was not quite as fortunate. Pound Aussie had this get in sync short, which there's the 9 o'clock. Actually, there's the 9 o'clock bar. And so you definitely would be in that trade. There again, that I might have adjusted around the 200 EMA. Actually, adjusting around the 200 EMA would have put you in the squeeze zone also. So that would be a possible reason to stay out of that trade, because looks like 2 ticks above the 200 EMA with the 50 pinching up toward. And so the entry's at 74 and the 200's at 73. So yeah, I would have adjusted that down to 72. Maybe even 71 where that is. Because although it's plotting at 7.3, it's very much on the low side of 7.3, so I might even take it down to 7.2, and that should keep you out of that. That would have put you in the squeeze zone, and that's one you make your own decision on based on your testing. But that's strong move up after a pretty strong move down, so don't know what it's going to do. I think I would have filtered that one out and waited to see if it would establish a trend. So we come up and get the long here. That would have been at 18 if it was a stop and reverse, or 14 if not. That doesn't go to money management. We come back to a stop and reverse, back to short, and that would be the stop and reverse plus key level would bring that to 84, and that is where we are now, is in the short, with it going pretty much nowhere. The pound Aussie trade a day called. I had called exactly the same trade I have, but didn't call it until 9:02, when it was right at the entry on my chart. Kevin hasn't called it live, so I'm assuming that his chart showed it was back up above the entry, and therefore he hasn't got it, isn't showing it triggered in for whatever reason. I suspect he may have been having some technical difficulties this morning, since we didn't hear from him until that first trade call. I actually had the trade at 8:32, and I did get in it, so I am in that trade. And it's definitely taking heat. It's just at a new session high at 83.065. Just barely pushing through the prior high. And the stop is at 83.08 on my chart. Let's see, 83.11 on Kevin's. That's the only that's a difference. I've got the same target too, the same entry, and the same money management. $7.73 and 67. Yeah, so I've got at 68 rather than 67 for the target 4, but I've got it almost exactly the same trade. So we're watching that one coming back down toward the entry again. The markets have opened a Russell chart with a short right at open, and even if you didn't get in initially, you're definitely in sync with it. If you're trading the Russell at all, that's still an open question and what chart to use at the moment. Crude is still flat, no additional trades. The YM has an SMA trade, an SMA long at 497. Looks like just below the session high. Yeah, session high is at 99. I think that one's worth making a 4-tick adjustment to 01, 501. And unleaded getting another stop and reverse back to long. 16 is the plotted entry, so that would take it to 21. And so we are long, and it looks like money management and target 1. Let's see, how big was target 1 there? On the YM. 21 ticks, that's probably not enough to take target one with 28 tick risk. So yeah, I would take that up to target 3, or target 2 rather. Target 2 at 530 for 29 ticks if we can get there. The Russell did hit target 1. Or sorry, it hit money management and 1 tick stop, and now is long. Soybeans. That tested the 20 SMA and was, as it, wait a minute, that's, oh, it's done quite a bit since open. Yeah, the open was actually back over here. It was right there at 930. Actually, that probably was a trade that you could have gotten in sync with. Looks like it touched target 1. It hit target 1 and 1 tick on the trailer. So that would actually be a one and done trade, but let's see if it did anything else after that. If you weren't able to get in that, that trade was not certain. The add-on was certainly not tradable initially. Now it would have been trade. You would have picked it up on the way back up. It didn't ever stop out, because its stop is way down here. Take a look at that. So we had right at 930. This 5 seconds to that bar, another 4 front on that one. Probably should have been in that trade and picked up target 1 and a 1 tick. But if you weren't able to trade that one, then you pick up the add-on at 1509 even, on its way back up actually over here. You pick up targets 1 and 2 and would have 1511.50. So there would have been your stop out just below target 1. So that definitely is a POQ on soybeans this morning. Unleaded making its way through targets 1 and 2. So picking up a 56 tick target. Probably not positive yet, after assuming we did get in. Assuming you got in sync with that, I personally wouldn't have, with the way it worked out around the 20 SMA. I would have left the short alone. But even with that, you have 2 stop and reverse. I'll have to just run the numbers shortly and see where we ended up with that one. Because that was at 21. So 51 ticks actually on the stop and reverse. And the pound Aussie trade doesn't look like it actually stopped out, but I got stopped with it. I got executed on the stop. That's interesting. I got executed at 9.5, and I'm showing the highest it got was the bid got was 7.2. And I'm not showing the spread being that wide, but that's a case where the broker does adjust his their stops or their spreads. Looks like we could, if we get a close below the balance line, we could get a short trade on crude coming up. So we did get a target 2 and stopping out at 5.14, it looks like. Yeah, 5.14. We have another SMA trade in progress now there, but that's already POQ. Target 1 or target 2, whichever you traded, you got there if you're using the SMA trades. Otherwise, gold level traders are still looking for their first trade. And they're not going to get along unless we get down close to the 50 EMA, because right now the OSOB is pink. So we're only looking for shorts unless it's a trade off the 50 EMA. Yeah, definitely sounds like broker shenanigans, Josephine. Yeah, exactly, and that's why I mentioned that when I came on. Yes, I know. I'm the unleaded chart's just been a mess this morning. But yeah, now the pound Aussie has gone through the stop, so that trade would cancel. Well, no, I take that back. Kevin's got that stop at 11, at 83.11. So I don't know where that's coming from. Because everything else about it is exactly the same as mine. So it doesn't make sense. But it has not gotten to 311, so for trade today, it's still active. Yeah, I was in it also, Don. But when I saw Kevin call it, it was right at the entry. So it was just a matter of if you got in it or not. He's never called it live. But if you're using the 311 stop, you're still in it, with your order actually somewhere about 313. We're given a 2-pip spread. I was giving it a 1.5 pip based on the spread on my feed. Are you talking about on the pound Aussie, Josephine, that you had no setup on TradeStation? Because Kevin is running TradeStation. That's what he's calling from. And yeah, based on when he called it, and he has not called it live, I would agree with that analysis that it hasn't come down since he called it. But based on my chart, I was in it and got stopped. I have already gotten stopped out, and we're up. Looks like we're up real close to the 11. In fact, there it went through 11. So yes, the trade should cancel, and Don, you should be out of the trade. Now, I suspect, given the timing and what I was seeing with the charts, that Kevin had some issues coming in this morning, and so didn't call the actual trade when it happened. But he called it, as I say, right in here at 9:02, which is right around where it crossed back up above the entry. Yeah, I was watching it too when he called it, because I was in the trade. Although I was also watching crude, because crude was, and speaking of crude has a short setup now at 66.19. That's a good sized trade, and you've got both the 20 SMA and the session open at 17. I can't justify coming all the way down to 14, but I think 16 is probably a good place. And it did come through and trigger on both 16 or 19. Unleaded, triggering in on the short with crude moving down, and that's hit target 1, and it's very close to target 2. And there's target 2 on unleaded. That one should get you positive on unleaded. After the move that crude has made, this is still possibly a reaction. I have to see if it bounces off the 20 or not. Oh, I'm sorry, off the 50 EMA. Testing the 50 EMA on crude, and they full stop out on the long on the, well, wait a minute. We got a target 2 win on the short. Now that one was right on time. Money management, basically break even on the long, even the stop and reverse, and so that short trade should get you to POQ on the Russell if you're trading it. Okay, the YM got two winning trades off the SMA, and now we have a short at 533, 534. And that one too is trying to get down to its money management. Bit of noise there. Okay, looks like crude is getting a bounce off of the 50 EMA. We'll have to see if it continues to head up. We got moving averages crossing over each other, so that would have been a testing zone. And we're testing the 50 EMA at the moment. It hasn't decided it's going to come down through it yet, but it also hasn't decided it's going to bounce off of it. Just hovering there. A couple of zebra stripes. So we'll have to see where that goes from here. Stop and reverse to long on the YM. Potentially at 48. I'd take that to 51. 40 tick target 2. I think it's worth the 3 tick adjustment beyond the stop and reverse. So that's a 5 tick adjustment. Still 35 ticks to target. Actually, to target 2, it's only 21 to target 1. So it's actually not that big a trade with that adjustment. But just barely having come through the 20 SMA, and 48 being the, let me make sure that 46 is, 47 is that, so yeah, I definitely would take it to 51. Entry where that yellow line is. And yes, Kevin has canceled the long or the short setup on the pound Aussie. Oh, okay, the only setup I had on crude was at just before 9 o'clock, and that would have been a valid get in sync. But adjusting for the 20 SMA down to 67 kept out of that trade. So that, yeah, this short was the first setup, and that has hit money management now. Looking for target 1 at 65.95. And we've gotten as low as 97. And there, yeah, we got as low as 97. Still 2 ticks away. And it still hasn't decided if it's coming down through the 50 EMA yet. Okay, the YM stop and reverse has canceled with a new short trade. But we are actually still in the prior short trade. Unleaded coming through a nice target too, and that, as I said, that's going to definitely get us positive if the first winning trade didn't. And yes, I agree. I agree with you if you're saying crude was already back up above the entry on the short trade before our start time. I agree. It did spike down right at the start time on my chart to 68, but as I said, 67 was where I had my entry, so I did not get into that. However, we are in this short, this green short, and our stop is currently at 66.16. And waiting to see where it goes. The YM definitely in testing mode right now as well. It's testing its 50 EMA. Kind of back and kind of going sideways at the moment. The YM this morning showing us why we like to get in and out quickly. The SMA trade getting us a quick POQ, but those not using it are stuck in this noise. Now, Russell looking like it's starting heading down. The YM is making its way back up toward the 550 mark again. Two choices for the stop on the YM, either back to the original stop at 581, or reducing risk and using the 551 stop and reverse entry as your continuing stop. And there is a new stop and reverse. That's at 53. So that would move your stop, definitely move your stop up a couple of ticks. Crude stop moves down to 66.12. And crude stopping out. So just getting, and I said 16 was my entry, so 4 ticks on the adjusted, 7 ticks on non-adjusted. So we're looking for another trade yet. And we're getting close to, yeah, in fact, we are in the 10 o'clock session now. So that is a positive 9 o'clock session, although we did not get to POQ. And there's a stop below the short, and we getting, there's money management from on the original short trade. Reaching for target at 495. We came down to exactly 500. And the unleaded trade has stopped out on its trailer. So the Russell is done. YM is trying to get done for gold level traders. And there it is. Target 1 achieved, and that will be a POQ for gold level traders on the YM. So YM, unleaded, Russell, and we have a long trade set up at 16. On crude for the 10 a.m. session. This is not part of the 9 a.m. session. And that's a diamond level trade. That's a trade off the 200 EMA. Notice the magenta color. And it looks like we have a new short on the pound Aussie. At 82, I have it at 8299. I'll see what comes up. And crude triggering in. So in the long. And we can borrow the stop on the YM 521. And Trade Today does have that 82.99 entry, and that has triggered in, or at least on my chart. Looks like Kevin hasn't said anything yet. Didn't get very far through, so it may not have gotten through on TradeStation. And now pound Aussie coming down a bit further. Ooh, and crude not doing too well. And crude rebounding again. And it looks like okay, we stopped out at 513 on the YM. So that one is complete. So four charts POQ. We're looking for the 10 a.m. crude session. And the pound Aussie yet this morning. Pound seems to have done quite well this morning. Pound yen is up strongly, as well as the pound Aussie. And the euro pound was down significantly. So looks like the pound is doing well today. So let's see where we are with crude. $66.16 for our entry, $29 for money management, and $31 for target. Questions this morning? And so now we watch the noisy price action. This is why we like to get done quickly. So where do we go from here? At the entry on crude, above the short entry on the pound Aussie, no telling. Wait and see mode. Not much to do. Crude sitting right around where session open was yesterday evening. Made a strong move to get back up to that and then just kind of stopped between session open and the 50 EMA. Just one note of interest. I was looking at the pound Aussie chart this morning and getting set up for the room. And I noticed that it had a trade at 12:04 yesterday afternoon, a short trade that lasted until after 3 this morning. Ultimately did work out and get targets 1 and 2. But 15 hours in a day trade. Obviously, a lot of you would have had a decision to make there if you had gotten into that trade. Obviously, that's outside of our trade times since we stop at noon. In our trade plan, we would not have been in, and trade today was not in that trade. But it was interesting that within 4 minutes of our stop time, we got a trade set up that lasted until 3 in the morning. when things began to actually move, you can actually see it here. It had just almost no activity from the time this trade set up to the session close at 1700 or 5 p.m. and very slow casual action until about 1:30, 1:45, when it finally started to move down. And getting down to target 2, but not much. It actually looks like it missed target 2 82.085, and target 2 was 82.08. So actually missing target 2 by 5 ticks or half a pip, and stopping out on the trailer. That would have certainly been a time to take profit on that position if you were even still in that trade. But basically that started an uptrend move around the time of the Frankfurt Open, which is 3 a.m. And that's where we are now. So you have to be aware of the consequences of your trade plan if you get into a trade right very near your start time. It could last a long time. And money management on crude. So your stops come up to 17, which is the session open. And there's target 1, so that will be a POQ session for 10 a.m. All right. So this will be a POQ trade on crude. And all we have left is the pound Aussie. And we're watching paint dry this morning. Actually, some interesting price movement this morning, but now it's, of course, most of our charts done. We're down to the ones that aren't moving very much, or the one that's not moving very much. Down to one anyway. And so now the question is, will the pound Aussie break back down? Looks like it's coming down to test its swing low. On the pound Aussie, that is. Okay, pushing down, setting a new swing low, or at least they're getting to a new swing low. Will it set the pivot there, or will it continue lower? It seems to be finding support at the 50 EMA. Or at least attempting to test the 50 EMA for support. Crude trade still in play. Stop currently at 66.17. If we get an up close here, or at least if we get a close above the balance line, it will move up to 66.19. All right, pound Aussie setting the pivot with a new swing low. And now we'll have to see if we can get below that and get below the 50 EMA. The 50 EMA has now come up above our money management. $10 a.m. session has been a reasonably good performer, especially in Troy's testing before he put that plan out. That was actually the best of the 4 mini sessions, but then it kind of slowed down, and the 9 a.m. session has kind of caught up. But yeah, it's been a solid performer. And crude did move up to 66.19. And at least for the moment, it's going to stay there at one more bar. And more paint. All right. And just zebra stripes there on the pound Aussie. And looks like a bit of zebra stripes on the crude now. It's taking a pause as well. Oh, I've definitely stayed in swing trades in Forex for a week or more. But to see it go for 15 hours in a trade that's day trade levels is a little bit unusual. The positive side of it is it actually did hit targets. That's one of those cases where I would have attached my orders to the trailing indicator and gone to bed. Use the tools that NinjaTrader provides. And it looks like the pound Aussie is trying to test its most recent swing low again, as well as the 50 EMA. $91.4, and we have gotten slightly lower on this one. We've gotten down to 91.0. Just 8 ticks above the 50 EMA, so that's our next roadblock. I have an Awanda feed as well, Ari, but I'm running Spotlight, and of course that's also what Trade a Day is running. I know. I guess we're 1.8. We've gotten within 1.8 of the 50 EMA. Actually got down to 90.6. So 1.4 now. And the 50 definitely providing, yes, there are some similarities, but they're very different in the way they approach confirmation. You're going to get considerably, typically more trades on CPX. It's not as picky about where the setups occur or when the setups occur. You pretty much get setups on most any set of exhaustion dots. They're similar in that they both use 3-bar setups. And of course, if you're using CPX2, I'm assuming that you're using MT4, Ari. I believe that's what I had seen you were using. So if or are you? No, that's right. You were using MT or Awanda on NinjaTrader or MT4. I forget now. Okay, yeah, on NT8. So you're using the same platform that I am. So yeah, Counterpunch will give you definitely give you different setups. And what chart are you using? Are you using the 8 pip momentum or are you using something else? Okay. The 8 tick momentum bar on NinjaTrader is actually an 80 tick range bar. So you notice I have the chart set for an 80 range, and I'm charting the bid. And NinjaTrader doesn't actually have a momentum bar. Its range bar is the equivalent of TradeStation's momentum bar. And the pound Aussie really truly testing the 50 EMA now. But so far, not able to get through. And a bounce off the 50 EMA. And a stop and reverse. Now this is one that TradeStation may not have, because most often my 50 EMA is slight, because of data differences, is different than Kevin's. All right, let's see where we are. All right, so that would be a stop and reverse at 83.03 on the pound Aussie. Crude long, looks like it missed target 2 by a tick. That's a tick or two. That may be an opportunity to trade for profit. And came back and closed out on the short entry at 27. So it looks like All right. So on my chart, we actually got target 3 at 14, which would be a minimum target. And that would be money management as well. So we'd have our stop at 83.04 and it would have stopped out. So tough road on pound Aussie this morning. And with that, I think it's, well, let's see. Let's see if we can take a look at the pound Aussie. Sorry, I added a chart and it just completely slowed me down to a crawl. But this is the pound Aussie spotlight chart. Or not spotlight, but counterpunch. So if we come back to 830, which is right there, counterpunch would have gotten a short that ended up being a full stop, got very close to money management and then was a full stop out. Then another short didn't make money management and stopped and reversed to long. Actually, that was a stop and reverse to a long there. So we stopped and reversed to long there and got it to target 1. And there was our, oh, wait a minute. I got to change this calculator. I think, let's see. Definitely, because I'm sure the default is not Forex compatible. And this is just overwhelming my computer, so I'm not going to be able to show this one. Okay. There we go. Oh yeah, 8:30. Was right in there. We had already gone too far on the prior trade. So our first trade would have been the short. Didn't quite get money management, or didn't get anywhere close to money management. Come back for the long, for the stop and reverse. We do get money management, but no targets. So we get a break-even trade. And we get the short. Doesn't quite get to money management. And then the long that gets to target 2. So kind of similar to what we saw on Spotlight. This is with the 80 tick or 8 pip range bar. But Pound Aussie just been really slow this morning. You know, that's almost 3 hours from there to the right edge of the chart. Not a whole lot of bars. And unfortunately, that's not a chart I'll be able to keep. Actually, I'm going to put that in place of the Euro Yen, I think. So I'll kill that one. And put that right there underneath what is normally unleaded gas. And we can take a look at that next week. And now we're getting a long setup from Kevin at 83.13. I don't know where that one's coming from. Definitely differences in data. But with that, I am going to shut it down. So I'm not seeing any questions. So I am going to call it a morning, and we buddy next week. Troy will be in on Monday. As far as I know at this point, it'll be a regular schedule. No, actually, Troy will not be in on Monday. Monday is Memorial Day, so that is a holiday. We will be dark. I will see everybody on Tuesday. Troy will have the Wednesday session, and the crude oil report will be on Thursday. So Troy may come in and do the Thursday crude oil session at 10:30. I will have to check with him on that. But Monday it will be dark. Memorial Day holiday. That was, Ari, that was the full counterpunch calculator. Not the CPX2, but it was pretty similar to the CPX2, just has more things in it. And I just had to adjust it for the 10th pip ticks, that extra digit on Forex. And counterpunch, we typically, for the day trades, usually push the targets out a half 0.5x. So instead of the first target being at 1x, we push it out to 1.5x. Yeah, really. Nope, I don't. I agree with you. There's not one that can keep up with human manipulation. Now, I'd be interested to see what the TradeStation chart looks like. But I will see everybody next Tuesday.